Mike, we return after our little hiatus here. Happy belated to Bobo. And we had quite a bit of we had some champions crowned while we were off. We saw Michigan win the men's national championship. We saw UConn basically run South Carolina out of the gym, but not even out of the gym and out of the building, out of basically the state at that point. Um, we had Denver University win their record-setting 11th NCAA men's hockey championship in a thrilling come from behind win over Wisconsin. And then the one that everybody was following for the only the fourth time in history, we've had somebody go back to back in your backyard in Augusta.
Yeah, last week was pretty eventful. Thank you for the birthday wishes for Bobby. If for those of you who have been watching us since the beginning, Bobby turned 5 last Saturday, which doesn't quite comprehend. And then I blink, and then right after your birthday next month, Caitlin will be 25. So yeah, shut up. I'm old. Yeah, we did have both men's and women's tournaments in basketball finished last week. UCLA, have they ever won a women's title before?
Not in the NCAA era because the tournament I don't want to say started until 70, like, or I want to say it was like 83 and they won when like 79.
Okay, so before the tournament format that we have now was their last women's championship. Um, I hate to say it, but Michigan was the best team wire to wire in the men's game. Beating UConn. They beat UConn in the semi, right?
No, it was the championship because remember
Was it championship game?
we had the Duke UConn uh classic on
That's
Saturday.
right. That's right. Um, and then of course Denver. I didn't realize Denver had that many Frozen Four wins.
That's what
Did you mention
everyone
to me?
forgets is because we all remember Denver starting to win championships this century. They've got 6 national championships this century, but the last time that Denver lost a Frozen Four national championship game, you gotta go all the way back to 1973.
Good God. Um, I will say this, having watched the highlight packages for both the women's and the men's. I didn't watch the Denver one yet. I did read your piece. It was amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Um, Having watched the highlight packages from both the men's and the women's, I want to start with the ladies. And it seems you and I give more time to the women's basketball game than much anything else. And I will say this, that looked like a John Wooden UCLA team beating the shit out of South Carolina that night. It was not even close. And Dawn Staley says it was an off night. No, honey, it's a national championship game. You're not allowed to have an off night. Not in the title game. So, hats off to UCLA. And again, Michigan just kind of put on a clinic, which for someone who can't stand that school, it's annoying, but it was impressive. All Dusty May is a great coach, great coach. Such
And
and to think, real quick, I'm sorry to cut you off, but to think we're only a couple years removed from the Juwan Howard debacle.
yeah,
For them to come back now after a subpar seasons under Juwan Howard for his entire tenure, basically, and win this national championship. Hats off to Dusty May for turning that program around. He did a great job.
and, this was something where there were a lot of people thinking going into that championship for how they steamrolled everyone, the plastering that they put on Arizona in the national semifinal. Nobody expected that. We thought that
No,
we were gonna get a close game. We primarily did, but it was something that the more you watched it, the more you figure Michigan had this thing under control. UConn would get a little closer, maybe look like one run they could actually take the lead, but it was just inevitable for the way that Michigan's really played all year. There were only 4 teams that were really up there all season long, and Michigan was really at the forefront of that list. It was them in Arizona for most of the year, and then Duke slides up, and then UConn creeps in come tournament time, and wouldn't you know, all 4 of them are back there. Florida goes on their big run, loses early in the tournament. This was I don't want to say this was the best tournament we've had in years. I want to say last year for all the drama that we had, especially with the fact that we got three fantastic games at the Final Four last year, with all four number one seeds being there. Florida coming, back from that big deficit early in the second half to upset Houston, win the championship. But this was, I want to say that this was one of the more entertaining Final Fours, and really tournaments in general because, again, that Duke UConn game is going to go down as probably one of the five greatest endings in the history of college basketball.
I agree, and I think this is I was joking with somebody when I was in New York, and they said, "What'd you think of the tournament?" I said, "I think Duke got their karma for Christian Laettner in the UConn game." Um, he was a Duke fan, so he was not happy with me for saying that. Um, you know, I wanna say this was the tournament, for me anyway, where I was looking for Cinderella, and I'm glad it didn't happen. Because everybody looks for Cinderella with the NCAA tournament. We look for that low seed team to big upset and keep moving on. We had 2 years where Butler almost won a national championship playing against Duke. You've had runs of teams like Gonzaga when they were a Cinderella, now they're a favorite every year.
We had, remember what, 2 years ago we had St. Peter's as a 15 almost get to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I mean, and you love the little guy winning those games. But for some reason, Jim, because the 4 teams that were the number 1 seeds were such different programs and such different teams on the court, you really didn't need that Cinderella to have a compelling tournament. I enjoyed what I watched. I didn't enjoy my bracket being dog shit. Uh, but it was a good leadway into what we got, playoff and draft season in the NBA, and we had draft season in the WNBA as well. Um, so I'm looking forward to seeing where these schools go. Up one more hat tip, James, if you will, to Cameron Boozer, become the second consecutive freshman to win the National Player of the Year. Did his father win it?
I don't think he did.
I don't think he did either, but I was wondering if there was that. You don't need to look it up. You that would jump out. That would have been all over the place if he had won it and Cameron won it. But I think there's only been 4 or 5 true freshmen to win it. Of course, it's 2 years in a row with Cooper Flag and Boozer. A few years ago, another Duke freshman and Zion Williamson won the Player of the Year. So we've had plenty of those guys, not plenty. We've had a few of those guys sprinkled into your um the kid from Purdue won it 2 years in a row, Zach Edey, right?
Zach Edey.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And then just to follow up on the women's tournament, I see Paige Becker's got a friend in Dallas.
A little bit more than a friend, because it's all that anybody wants to talk about now.
Well, I think it's funny. They did a TikTok. Her and Azzy Fudd did a the Elmer Fudd jokes, by the way, on social media this week have just been flying all over the place too. But they did a TikTok where she said, "I'm playing in Dallas," and Paige goes, "I know." And where do you play? And Paige just kind of puts her head down on the desk. I thought that was great. I thought that was absolutely great. But the big one of
But
the week, James,
go ahead.
you said down in my neck of the woods, and for only the second time since 2004, we have a back-to-back Masters champion. I take heart with this one, not just because it's in my backyard, but because he's from the same part of the country as my family's from. As Rory won his second consecutive green jacket. I got to tell you, we talked about it on the phone last night. Feels like it was forever ago, but he fell apart on Sunday. The
He
front
fell
nine was
apart
terrible.
he fell apart on Saturday going into Sunday, and it looked like a hangover effect.
He almost looked like Greg Norman. Not to invoke the shark at all, but
Yeah,
he did not play well the end of Saturday. He did not play well on the front on basically most of the front nine on Sunday. And then something happened. And I want to say watching the highlights of it, he got to Amen Corner and just dominated from there into the end of the tournament. And
that's
we've
really
seen
where he turned Saturday around as well from what I watched, and you touched on it. Rory becomes he's the second this century. He's only the fourth in history. We touched on it very early. It was Jack, Nick Faldo, Tiger, Rory, the only four to ever repeat at Augusta. He, it's another major in his cap and on his mantle. Um, this was something that four different guys had either the outright or share of the lead. Justin Rose put together that great run late, just kind of ran out of gas, had that horrible double. I want to say it was on 15 that kind of took him out of contention. Um, we saw Scotty Scheffler, the number one player in the world, make a run there. And Rory went from, you know, tied for the lead for the way that he fell apart towards the end of with the hole that he dug himself in until he got to Amen Corner on Saturday. Um, and then, started working his way back once he actually got through that disastrous, I want to say, first 5 holes on Sunday, and then just really started to put himself out of reach and made himself look like how dominant he was in the first 2 rounds where we thought it was him and everybody else at that point.
Yeah, and after the second round, my first thought, and obviously I was away, so I didn't get to talk to you much about the week that was. But my first thought after the second round, and I saw what the scores were. I sat there and thought about it. I'm thinking to myself, "Holy shit, we're getting 97 Tiger out of Rory right now. He's just going to run away and hide." And then we got to the hotel Sunday night because you ain't doing at my age. I'm not doing 15 hours in one shot in a car. So we get to the hotel Sunday night, or no, Saturday after Bobby's party. I looked at the leaderboard, and went, "Oh, Rory, what are you doing to me here, bud?" And then we get there Sunday night, of course, and he's won this second consecutive green jacket. Uh, I got to tell you, it's nice to see it happen again. Takes some of the spotlight off of the last guy to do two in a row from the stupid shit he pulled. But I think, Jim, my favorite part of Masters Week, which usually is the par three, I love seeing the families. You got Jack's grandson a couple years ago with the hole in one. Poppy hits that disgusting putt, what, last year or the year before?
Yeah.
But my favorite moment of Masters Week was all the live golfers falling the fuck apart and just playing like absolute dog shit.
I mean, look at the leaderboard if we can actually back up a little bit here. The highest live rank player that finished the weekend was Brooks Koepka, who was 5 under, tied for 12th. And remember, he jumped that tour to come back. So you had Rory winning at 12 under, Scotty Scheffler, finished at 11 under with a fantastic weekend, going 65-68 on the over the weekend.
I
Terrell
didn't realize Scotty
Hatton,
played that well.
yeah, Terrell Hatton, Ricky Henley, Justin Rose, and Cameron Young all tied for third at 10 under. Colin Morikawa, the former champion, and Sam Burns finish at 9 under. Max Homa and Xander Schauffele at 8 under. Jake Knapp at 7 under. Jordan Spieth with a wonderful run, shooting a final round 68. Him, Hideki Matsuyama, Kepka, Patrick Cantley, and Patrick Reed all 5 under. Jason Day 5 under. So the top 12 get automatic invites back for next year.
And that's awesome. I want to ask your opinion on this, and then we can wrap up this segment here. The champion's allowed to play there whenever he wants. It's a lifetime
Yes.
membership. He go whenever. A lot of people, or not maybe not a lot, but a bunch of people on social media were saying, "Oh, well, it's Rory had an advantage because he won last year." Your opinion on that, please.
If you win the US Open, you get an exemption to come back. It's a little different because of the fact that once you win, you're a member for life essentially. And it's really the only golf tournament in the world really outside of Firestone, or honestly, TPC at Sawgrass with the famous Island Green. Um, that's the same place every year. I mean, we have the Phoenix Open, Waste Management, but those aren't, you could basically go play those courses really anytime you want. You can go in and get practice rounds. You really only get a practice round or a partial one when you're at Augusta, or if you're actually playing with somebody else who's already a member. I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, you've got to win a first one sometime. Rory got his last year, and let's be honest, it out starting on Saturday afternoon, it damn sure didn't help him.
No, it didn't. And my personal feeling on it, just real quick, yeah, he won last year, so it is a perk that he can go there anytime he wants to play the course. It doesn't mean you're going to win. Again, I mean, come on. We've only had 4 dudes do this. And think about it. You had Jack in the 70s did it, right? Jack in the
Correct.
70s. Faldo was
Late,
95 and
yeah.
90s.
I want to say it was like 67, 68. I'd have to double check that.
But Faldo was 95, 96.
I think he was
Because Faldo,
88, 89.
well, I know Faldo was the defending champion when Tiger won in 97. So it very well, but because he's got more than 2. But because Faldo's the one who put the jacket on him, and the defending champion is always the one that puts the jacket on the champ.
So Jack was 65, 66.
Okay.
Um, Please hold. And this is still riveting entertainment for even though we are pre-recorded.
Well, we're trying to get stats correct. We're not these assholes just pull shit out of their ass and speak on it. I mean, we are, but we back it up somehow.
Yeah. Okay, so we touched on Jack. Faldo I was right, 88, 89.
Oh, was it really?
Um,
Wow.
I'm sorry, 89, 90 was Faldo. Tiger was 01, 02, and VJ was the one that put the jacket on him. Uh, Faldo won what you're thinking of when Tiger won in 97, it was because Faldo won his third the year before in 96.
Okay, because I knew Faldo put the jacket on him. I remember that vividly, as I tell people all the time. That's the only time I ever skipped school was to watch him take the lead on Friday.
Mhm.
Um, and I remember VJ winning in 2000.
Yes.
Um, so listen, hats off to Rory, man. That's a great accomplishment, especially the first major of the year to get it twice in a row. Um, as we do when a horse wins uh, the Derby, which is in a couple weeks, you want to see if a guy can finish the slam out. Let's see what Rory's got in him.
And especially with the added bonus of the news that the Saudis are threatening to pull funding, and Liv is in serious trouble.
Good. So, James, we go from our first segment where we talked about crowned champions to the system of crowning a champion as the NBA playoffs have tipped off with not only the play-in games being basically done, but also now we get first round games coming up this week. Our own beloved Cleveland Cavaliers with the 4 seed will play the 5 seed Toronto Raptors, which, correct me if I'm wrong, have they played the Raptors every year they've been in the playoffs since the Raptors have been in the league?
It really just seems that way. Although revisionist history, we always actually the last time we kind of remember that was LeBron, Kevin Love, and Kyrie. Going to 4 finals. It seemed like they played Toronto at some point every one of those years.
Yeah, that was when the whole LeBronto thing came out. Uh, the Who was the announcer that year? The Cleveland "This Is for You" when he hit the floater to end Game 3. I don't. Was it Kevin Nagandi that did that game on
It might
ESPN?
have been.
So the top 2 seeds in each conference, Detroit. I told you Pickle Brickle was going to be an absolute problem with Cade Cunningham. And then, of course, in the West, it's the defending champs, right?
Yeah.
Are the 1 seed again? Um, I got to tell you, you and I went back and forth about this off the air. I like Toronto for Cleveland in round 1 with the home court in Cleveland. And let me explain why. I think the city of Toronto has Cleveland such in their head that the Cleveland fans, have you seen the shirts they're giving out for this one?
I have not.
So I get the text messages from the Cavs fan shop because I have purchased items through there. Jim, it's literally to let them know it's two asterisks, a C, and four asterisks after. It's let them fucking know all the chairs are going to have the shirts on them. I thought that was the most Cleveland fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life, at least for basketball. We'll discuss next week in full depth Cleveland football and stupid shit. So, not that
So
I'm
you're
teasing something.
So your matchups as we go through it, and by the time I get done with the editing of the segment, you'll be able to see them straight up on the screen. Your matchups, we're going to start out in the West because it's the left side of the bracket. So you have the Thunder as the 1 seed. They will play the winner. We are taping this on Thursday the 16th. The final play-in game to determine that 8th seed will be on Friday night. It'll be either Golden State or Phoenix. That game will be in Phoenix. The 4-5 matchup will be the Lakers as the 4, the Rockets are the 5. The Nuggets are the 3. They will play the number 6 Timberwolves, and the 2 seed are the San Antonio Spurs, and they will get the number 7 seed Portland Trailblazers, who won their play-in game back on Thursday. We shift over the East. The Pistons are the number 1 seed, and they will play the either the Magic or the Hornets, who will play Friday night for that 8th seed. The Cavaliers are the 4, Toronto is the 5. We just discussed. The Knicks are the 3 seed. They will play the Atlanta Hawks, which is even more surprising, especially after the Trey Young trade. We thought that they were going to be in the can, and they end up with a top 6. And then the Celtics will play the surprising 76ers, who got through their portion of the play-in tournament.
If I had to handicap it right now, I don't see either team that can win tomorrow night giving SGA and the OKC, the defending champs, a hard time. I like the Lakers to win in the first round, which I never really do. I mean, we've done this for a few years now, and I don't think I've ever picked the Lakers to win anything um, since this. What was the next one?
Denver and Minnesota.
I like the Joker there. And then the 2-7. Listen, playoff Wemby. Interesting.
I don't know what's better in that series because that I don't think it's going to be the best series of the first round, but I think it's going to be the most entertaining because now we got playoff Wemby as a 2 seed up against Portland back in the playoffs for the first time in several years.
Yeah, I forgot they'd been out for a while. Basically, since what 1 or 2 years before they dealt. Um. Oh, why is his name escaping me?
Damian Lillard.
Yeah, but a couple years before they dealt Dame to Milwaukee, they weren't in either. So this is a few years in waiting for this.
I like this because it's
Jim,
also now we're seeing what Wemby can do as a star with a team that's going to be able to challenge Oklahoma City. But also, if you go on the other side, let's see Scoot Henderson and that very young and talented and up and coming Portland team get some playoff experience against a monster.
yeah, I agree. The thing I'll say about that series is Portland's at the age, as far as their roster goes, where they're too young and stupid to realize they're not supposed to be there,
Right.
and that's scary because those teams that are 7 and 8 seeds, they're playing with house money. They've got nothing to lose. So they're inherently more dangerous. And that's not just because I love Gene Hackman's speech in the replacements, and I say that. Because there is no tomorrow for them. They just have to play well. Over in the East, I'm going to tell you a couple things I think are going to surprise you. Number one, I don't think the Knicks get out of the first round.
You like Atlanta in that series, huh?
I like Atlanta because the Knicks have proven if Jalen Brunson has an off night, they can't do shit.
I still think the Knicks are the Knicks, and I think they're probably the biggest challenge to Boston or Detroit in that conference. I still think Boston is the cream of the East now with a fully healthy Jason Tatum. I still it's not that I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop with Detroit. It's it's a very impressive team. It's just the fact that Boston got hot, got one of the 5 best players in the world back, and really just didn't have enough games to be able to close.
I agree with you. Here's where I think Boston is going to run into a problem. Those boys at the front of that lineup have had to play a lot more minutes this year because Tatum was hurt than they usually had to. Tatum is not fully in game shape. He can put up numbers but after his first game, he really wasn't doing that because he's not in game shape. So the bad time to I'm not saying he is like this player, but Tatum coming back from that injury when he did reminds me of Michael Jordan 45, not 23.
Yeah.
Came back about the same time in the season and they lose because he wasn't in game shape. He wasn't. Let's be very he was in baseball shape. He was not in basketball shape. Um, so I wonder about although Boston has really good depth. So I wonder about the front line that they have going on right now. What's going to help them with that? Uh, Jim, I gotta say it, and it's partial homerish. They are a different team with James Harden. Our Cavaliers. Um, it's a milestone year for them. Third Friday in June, Jim. It's 10 years to the day. I couldn't find my championship shirt, or else I would have worn that. But it's a milestone year for the Cavs. They have the first legitimate 1A to Donovan Mitchell that they have had going into the playoffs in any year since Donovan Mitchell came over in that blockbuster trade. I honestly think they can make noise. Is it enough noise to get to the finals? I don't know. Because again, Boston's going to be a problem. And I think you're going to get Boston in round two, if I'm not mistaken, right?
You would actually in round 2, you would play Detroit. You would not play Boston or the Knicks until the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, but they split with Detroit this year, if I remember correctly.
They can beat Detroit. I don't know if this was a 52-win team that probably because I'm sitting in the backyard and we watched them a little bit closer than anybody else. Outside of maybe the Lakers, and it's not just the focus on them because of the fact that it's the Lakers and LeBron. I don't know if I've ever seen a more inconsistent or apprehensive 52-win team in years
Absolutely.
than the 2025-2026 Cleveland Cavaliers.
I agree with you 100%. Here's where I think they've turned a corner. This team was 17 and 16 after 33 games, which means they went 35 and what? 19 down the stretch? That's a huge fucking turnaround. The most important players in this playoffs run for the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to be Keon Ellis and Jalen Tyson. Because for the first time in a long time, the Cavs have a bench that can do it with any lineup on it. Who thought Sam Merrill was going to be this good this year? You have a relatively healthy roster going in. Max Strus didn't play until what, 6 weeks ago?
Right.
If they have any year they're going to make noise, it's going to be this year.
The the apprehensiveness I have, I'm looking at the Cavs last maybe 30-35 games. Um, Lost to Oklahoma City, lost to the Pistons, lost to Boston, um, lost to the Magic, who could potentially still get in. You you got run off the floor essentially, even though the final score tells a different story by Dallas. You run a Miami beats the snot out of you. You come back and you put up 149, but give up 128 the very next night. You basically got run off the floor by the Lakers, despite the 14-point final score. You rest a bunch of guys and you still got run off the floor by Atlanta. I understand that they may have been trying to do a mini tank to be able to set them up as the 4 to be able to get Toronto because they also figure Detroit might be a better matchup for them. But this was a team that I felt coasted maybe over the last 10 to 12 games and could have had a shot to maybe get the 3 seed, close in on the 2. You finish one game back of the Knicks for getting that 3 where you could have gotten Boston in the second round for the exact. What would you rather have? A fully healthy, waiting on the other shoe to drop Detroit, or a Boston team that's still very good, that's still trying to find their footing now that their superstar is back, and you know that they're going to try and drive him into the focal point at this point. It's six and one, half dozen of the other. I'd have taken my shot with Boston than Detroit, to be honest.
I would have taken my shot with Detroit, and here's why. They know their coach. They know their coach is the worst at in-game adjustments in NBA history. And now you have the ultimate trump card to Bickerstaff, and it's not Kenny Atkinson, it's James Harden. Because everybody would prepare for the Cavs for two undersized guards who didn't play very good defense and couldn't help out anywhere but in the backcourt. James Harden's a hell of a rebounder. He has played adequate, if not above adequate defense since he's come over, and he's fully bought in. Jim, I'm telling you, something's different. And I could be 100% wrong. I could be 100% wrong. I thought going into last year when they were the 1 seed, they were going to coast to the conference finals. They got the doors blown off them in round 2. Again, health was an issue. But this year with a mostly healthy roster, if Jared Allen can stay upright for after the first round, they then have something no other team in the Eastern Conference has. They have the big man underneath, and they have the stretch four who can make you have to play the perimeter.
I don't want to say it. I'm going to end the segment and I'm going to have to say it. Would it also surprise you in any aspect with how close we follow this team that the fact that we have the draft coming up Thursday night live and our next pre-tape show won't be until the following week? Could we also be talking about them getting bounced in the first round and not having to talk about the Cavs for basically until the fall? Could we conceivably be coming back on the air after tonight talking basketball and the Cleveland Cavaliers are not in the playoff picture anymore or seriously on the ropes?
Okay. Can we not do that right now?
We shift from the hardwood to the ice that's underneath it in many of those NBA arenas. Michael, within probably the next 45 minutes from the time we finish recording this show, the NHL regular season is over. We have 3 games left on the slate as we are recording. And here's the funny thing. We know the 16 teams that are in. These last 3 games are going to determine the final 3 in terms of where they're going to be seated in the Western Conference. The East is set. We have 2 of the matchups already set in the West. This is actually now going to determine who's going to get the last 2.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with this, first of all, you love when any kind of playoff seeding or contention comes down to the last day of the year because it's just so much more fun.
Mhm.
With the East being set, we've had you personally, because you're the bigger NHL guy than I am, had some time to handicap where you think these teams are going to land. But more importantly, I want to start with one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. And James, you got the jersey up on the wall. I can see it even through the blur. Congratulations at the end of the longest playoff drought in NHL currently to the Buffalo Sabres, who, by the way, are calling people the fuck out, which is beautiful.
The Atlantic Division champion Buffalo America Sabres.
We got to
The
put some respect
Sabres
on that name.
clinched the Sabres clinched the playoff spot the last time we came to you. Earlier this week, They, with a 5-1 win over the Chicago Blackhawks, clinched the Atlantic Division for the first time in their franchise history, because that was prior to the to realignment when Seattle and Vegas came into the league. Shows you how long it's been. Um, but also it's the first time the Sabres have won a division since 2001.
That was the Dominic Hasek led Buffalo Sabres, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe Michael Pekka was part of that team.
Yep.
Yeah. There's only one player. I'm trying to remember who it is. Tyler Myers is
Roger.
the only player still active in the NHL who was still playing when the last time the Sabres were in the playoffs.
I want you to think about this. That's the year my daughter was born. She's going to be 25.
You and I were still in college.
No, I was out of college.
I mean,
Remember,
we
you
had
went,
graduated. Well, then again, yeah, I moved on to Cleveland State. You actually, you headed back up to New York
yep.
by then.
So you were still in college. I was changing diapers.
So our matchups in the Eastern Conference, the Carolina Hurricanes with their 113 points, champions of the Metropolitan, are the number one seed in the East. They will play the Ottawa Senators. The Sabres, the champions of the Atlantic with 109 points, will play the number two wild card, the number one wild card team, the Boston Bruins. Um, you know, old Metropolitan Division rivals going at it again. And then this is actually where the NHL needs to go back to a 1 versus 8 seeding, because the other matchup we have in the Atlantic Division are going to be the Tampa Bay Lightning against the Montreal Canadiens. Both finished with 106 points. Tampa wins the tiebreaker, having more regulation wins and overall wins than Montreal. And people are also saying this is a rematch of the 2021 finals, because remember, back in the COVID bubble, it didn't actually matter because they reseeded everybody at that point. You had teams from the Eastern Conference playing in the West, and vice versa and
Yeah.
everything. And then you get the Battle of Pennsylvania, where the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers will meet in the Metropolitan Division. The Penguins get the nod, even though the Flyers finished with 43 wins overall and Pittsburgh only had 41. The Penguins had 34 wins in regulation. The Flyers had 27. So Philadelphia with 2 more overall wins, Pittsburgh with 7 more in regulation, which is the automatic tiebreaker. This is actually where the NHL had a problem, because the top 8 in the East got in. Great, good. You know, it's it's also the idea that Tampa would have ended up playing either Pittsburgh or Philly, and Montreal would have gotten the other one. All the other matchups basically lined up perfectly.
Yeah. And from what you were telling me just in the conversations that we have had, the Eastern Conference seemed to be the one that chopped itself out pretty easily. You didn't have a whole lot of controversy with the seeding, a whole lot of controversy with who got in or what have you. But James, let's talk about the West, which seems to be the clusterfuck that is the NHL.
Well, we're going to cycle back to that here for one moment, because some of the other teams that missed out, we saw. Could we have possibly seen the final game of Alex Ovechkin's career as the Capitals miss out on the playoffs by 4 points? He hasn't made a decision, but there's a lot of people thinking that he will come back for one more year. Um, we saw the two-time defending champion Florida Panthers miss out on the playoffs, and badly, finishing third worst in the East at 84 points. The Maple Leafs finish 1 point out of the bottom in the East, and that spot belonged to the New York Rangers at 77 points. For the first time in history, all three New York metropolitan teams, and we're talking the Devils, the Islanders, and the Rangers, all missed the playoffs.
I can't believe it's the first time in history, because they were dog shit for a while when I was living there.
At least I want to say it's at least in the expansion era.
Okay,
I
that
could
makes
be
sense.
I could be wrong on that, but we also saw the two biggest stories in the Eastern Conference outside of the Buffalo Sabres and the Flyers now getting back into the playoffs after long droughts. Um, the Detroit Red Wings and the Columbus Blue Jackets with epic collapses. The Jackets fall out of the playoffs. We all saw the epic rant that interim head coach Rick Bowness went on, where he said his team didn't care in their regular season loss, even though they were already eliminated from the playoffs going into that game. The Detroit Red Wings were a top three team in the NHL and still lost out on the playoffs. The Red Wings were in the top three at the turn of the calendar.
That's crazy. I didn't realize they were playing that well, and now that you mention it, we talked about it a bunch early in January. So yeah, that's a little rough to swallow there.
There's a lot of people already saying no matter how great he was as a player, the Iser plan is not working because now the Red Wings are the holders of the longest playoff drought in the NHL, and they're at 10 years.
Which, when we were growing up, I mean, they're a blue blood they're an original franchise anyway, but they were every year. I mean, Scotty Bowman won what, 2 cups when we were kids?
Yeah. At the expense of my
That's
I remember how much I got ridiculed for wearing Blues jerseys during those playoff years when we were in high school.
Yeah, I remember that. So
So
Jim,
we shift
let's
over to the
talk about
West.
let's
Go
talk
ahead.
about the West a little bit because that you've been going on and on about that. And I don't mean to sound like that, but you have been, because it's been something, especially with your love of the NHL, that has bothered you a little bit for what's going on.
So the Colorado Avalanche are the President's Trophy winners for the second time this decade, finishing with 119 points, which is actually six clear of Carolina overall. They wrapped up the President's Trophy last week, ironically enough. They will end up playing, and this is where it gets tricky. They still don't know who their opponent's going to be, and we'll come back to that here in a moment. The Vegas Golden Knights win the Pacific Division, ironically enough, clinching it yesterday with 95 points. They're going to get, if you can believe this, the only second year officially as a franchise Utah Mammoth, but you have to go back. The Arizona Coyotes slash Utah Mammoth franchise, Michael, are in the playoffs. What's more surprising, that or Buffalo?
I'm not going to be a dick, but Buffalo. And honestly, and it's more because of history. Utah was basically a clean slate, leaving the desert, going out there, becoming the Mammoth, getting the cool jersey and the cool mascot. Buffalo had history behind it, and it's almost like those two teams, being the Sabres and the Bills, until they're over the hump, it's like the history is gonna. It's like Cleveland before the 2016. Before then, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right. So the other matchups, we got Dallas at 112 will face Minnesota at 104. That'll be your Central Division matchup. And then this is where things get muddled because we've still got 5 games all on the West Coast going on now. 3 of them involve playoff teams. We know who the teams are that are in. Edmonton is sitting now the 3-time Western Conference defending champion Edmonton Oilers are sitting at 91 points. They are in right now. They're sitting at the 2 in the Pacific. Their matchup as it stands at the moment, they are going to play the surprising Anaheim Ducks, who had that great start. The Ducks are in. They're at 90 points. They're also tied right now, but own the tiebreaker with the LA Kings, who are sitting at 90. So there's a possibility if the Kings and the Ducks win, the Oilers get bumped down to the 8th seed and have to play Colorado. Here's where Colorado is just that good. They don't care who their opponent is. They just don't know who it's going to be. Is it going to be the Oilers, the Ducks, or the Kings? The other great aspect that we have in these playoffs is that we get one more run of Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin in Pittsburgh, but we also get to push the sun back into the clouds for at least 4 more games for Anze Kopitar, as he's going to be retiring once the Kings run comes to an end. As we also saw Jonathan Quick announce earlier this week that he's officially retired now that the Rangers season has come to a close as well.
Yeah, a lot of careers coming to an end of guys that we have followed for many years. I thought it was cool the other night, just going back to the regular season for a second, that the guy from Washington got himself dismissed from the face-off, so Ovechkin could come in and take the face-off against Sidney Crosby. I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
cool the other night. But Jim, going back to the Western Conference playoffs, I'm going to say this: if I'm the Avalanche, I want no part of Connor McDavid. No part.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen now because as I'm talking and we've seen stranger things happen, um, the Oilers are leading the Canucks 4-1, the NHL worst Canucks 4-1 late in the second period. So it looks like the Oilers are going to hold on there. They're going to claim that 2 seed in the Pacific Division. So they're going to be locked in. So it's going to come down to Anaheim and Los Angeles. Anaheim just took a 5-4 lead late and is on the power play against Nashville. So the Ducks just need to hold on for 2 more minutes, and they're going to push the Kings, who are right now tied late in the second period with the also really bad Calgary Flames. So it looks like if the way that things hold up, um, we are going to have the Kings playing the Avalanche, and then the Oilers are going to host the Ducks in round one. Again, Vegas is going to host Utah. Dallas is going to host Minnesota.
I don't even want to handicap this just because we're still not sure where it's going to land. Again, I don't know if anybody wants any part of Connor McDavid personally, but if I'm the Avalanche, I'm glad that they're going to be the two. The other one that I'm interested to see is the Ducks. You know, we made a lot of jokes this year because the McQueen kid was drafted by the Ducks. He's wearing the Lightning McQueen number on his jersey. They're the upstart team in the Western Conference. No one saw them going this year. So let's see how much house money the Ducks are going to play with.
There's a lot of people though thinking when um Pittsburgh and Edmonton did the goalie swap, Tristan Jarry for Stuart Skinner, who'd actually thought that both teams would end up getting in afterwards. We always thought that one was going to collapse. We thought that Pittsburgh, with their age, was actually going to be the one to kind of fall back, and then Edmonton just kind of had to stay the course and figure out what was going to happen here. Um, you're right. We don't want to handicap it because even though Colorado wins the President's Trophy, they've looked a little suspect in recent years. And oh yeah, the Dallas Stars went into the postseason on a 5-game winning streak. Vegas is going in on a 3-game winning streak. If you shift back over to the East, the longest winning streak you've got are the Flyers. The Sabres lost in overtime in their regular season finale last night against Dallas, ironically enough. You know, um Pittsburgh's lost 3 in a row to basically kind of back themselves in. They were already, going to be in for finishing, and this is where the seeding problem comes into effect, where they need to go back to the 1 versus 8, because if when you look at it, um Utah is going to be the 7, but if you slot things down, they honestly should be the 5 seed and should be playing Vegas in the first round. They're going to be doing that anyway, but I mean, you're still going to have the top 8 in there. Just the divisional format going back to the way that it used to be when you had like the Adams and the Smythe divisions way back in the 80s, like we had before the major expansion boom, like when the Jackets, the Wild, the Lightning, the Sharks, when the league really started to expand out, to all these other secondary type markets. We solved one problem, eliminating the red line for 2-line passing. We solved another problem by, you know, eliminating ties. We eliminated another problem by getting hockey out of the desert. When is the NHL and Gary Bettman finally going to wake up and start putting the playoffs back the way that they should be?
It's Gary Bettman. Don't put a clock on it. It's probably not going to happen.
At least they got the right teams in. I mean, the top 8 in there are there, but the seating is all off.
Yeah, the seating is garbage. I agree with you. Hey, why is it the playoffs in the last couple of years we have a real problem with the seating? but not with the people in the playoffs?
Because you had teams that had better records getting left out because they didn't finish in the top 3 in their division and
Of
got
course.
filtered behind in the wild card.
Can they replace him yet?
Me personally, I'll probably do would I do more cartwheels when that happened as you would do when Bud Selig was replaced as commissioner?
I had already hurt my back, so cartwheels were out of the question when Commissioner Selig was kicked to the curb. Now, I'll probably do a backflip when Rob Manfred's gone.
Would you shut up and just push the button already?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
It's the YZ Translator on the Wise Guys Sports Show.
I'm forever unclean.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the YZ Translator. It is the best segment of the night because it is the last segment of the night. It is that time when James and I give each other names inside and outside of the sports world, and we come up with the first thing that pops off in our sleep-deprived brains. We have come up with some of the more funny moments of our show in the Translator. Going all the way back to the very first one, which we will have an anniversary of sorts of next Thursday night, when James looked into the camera and said, enter that into the YZ Translator, Sanika Wallace. The next week we had John on and we went off. We laughed so hard during the YZ Translator during that first one with John that it actually is its own OTR and YZ Translator. It's on 2 different playlists on the Wise Guys YouTube channel. But since I normally give us the first name, James, I'm going to go somewhere that I have been laughing about for the last 2 weeks. And your name in tonight's YZ Translator is the pimp of the NFL, New England Patriots head coach, Mike Vrabel.
A Coldplay concert would have been more convincing, dude.
My first thought was,
don't get me wrong. I love me some Diana Rossini. Like, the only thing that would have probably made it better if it was Lauren the Hottie Shahadi. Wrong sport, right idea.
Wait. D-Row, Lighter, or Roflo? Who's getting busted with Shahadi?
Emotional damage.
Yo, what is it about New England and cheaters?
The graphic, one of the memes I saw, I don't even think you've seen this. Actually, it said that even with that, it still doesn't rank in the top 5 for scandals that they've had this century.
It doesn't. The hilarious thing was I saw someone did an exchange between him and Robert Kraft. And Robert Kraft said, "You embarrass this organization." And he said, "You've done worse."
In the last couple of years, you've done worse.
Yeah. Go get a massage, dude.
I mean, I understand, you just came off a Super Bowl that you had absolutely, first of all, no business being in, but, you can go back and watch one of our other shows, for us to rail on that. You struck gold, having the next superstar quarterback fall into your lap, because the Cleveland Browns were too stupid to name you a head coach and keep you around in an organization, when they decided to stay the course for another 18 months. Lie a little bit better, dude. I mean, would we have had as much of a problem with it if he was still with Tennessee, with the fact that their logo is now a Houston Oilers butt plug than,
No.
than what's going on now?
I want to know how he didn't lie better. He was on Urban's staff at Ohio State. Urban made this a fucking game. What do you got for me, dude?
Michael, I talked about burying the lead. I'm going to do it anyway. You saw the video before we started recording tonight. Um, I have to get your opinion on it. We talked about it a little bit. We can expand a little bit more. Your name in tonight's YZ translator is the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion, all 185 pounds of him, Darby freaking Allen.
I gotta say, watching that, my favorite part was the symmetry you and I talked about. For those who don't know, MJF, who is this generation's Ric Flair, I'm going to go out and say it. Dirtiest player in the game, best on the microphone, same, you know, same mentality as the high flying um, Ric Flair was in the 80s. And you can do that whole thing better than I can. I'm not even going to attempt it. Uh, for him to wear the same color that Flair wore the night he dropped the belt to Sting, who is and Sting was Darby Allin's mentor when Sting was in AEW at all 174 years old. It was wonderfully poetic. The fact that it happened in Darby's hometown of Seattle was even better. My favorite part of the video, besides the wrestling, was the old lady in the pink jacket with the Mariners hat on. Baseball guy, gotta say it. But I gotta say this. Every time WWE ups the ante with something better in storytelling that they've done recently, since Vince has not been a part of it, AEW goes one step further, and I think it's beautiful.
We talked about it briefly before we came on. The symmetry with Flair and Sting. Darby winning in his hometown, essentially Everett, Washington, not that far away from where he grew up in Seattle. You haven't seen the promo. I told you, to go watch that sometime tomorrow and try to do it without actually trying to break down like Darby was when he was delivering it. Um, you know, Brian Danielson on the call with Tony Schiavone and Excalibur, and you kind of knew that they knew, but they didn't think it was going to go down that way. It made you wonder how many people really actually knew how it was going to go down, how much of it was kind of called on the fly. um the four p- the sy- the symbolism of the four pillar coffin drop with Darby and Jack Perry and MJF, and I'm trying to remember who, and Britt Baker being the four pillars of AEW when they started 7 years ago. Britt, God knows if she's ever going to be back, but the rest of those guys are all still there. Jack Perry's turned his career back around since he came back a second time. And for Darby, climbing Mount Everest, the legendary battles he's had with Sting, being part of Sting's last match, going through glass, Sting going through glass in that great match against the Young Bucks, uh, you know, breaking his ankle after getting hit by a car or a bus or something like that, having to postpone doing the Everest training and eventual trip, cutting a promo and planting an AEW flag at the top of the world, and then that gets played at all in Texas last year in the main event, and he rappels down from the top of a stadium, not just an arena, but a stadium, for everything that he's done, and everyone who's hating that this is the wrong move, the wrong call, and just want to sit back and chill over that $80 snore fest and shit show that's going to be happening in Las Vegas. That whore fest that they're pining themselves out to, starting as early as tomorrow with the Hall of Fame ceremony. Um, and not appreciate this for what it was, even if it was only in front of like 4,000 people on a Wednesday night in suburban Seattle. Just completely miss the point.
They really do. They really do. And I think your take on it was very and you're more nuanced in this than I am. I watch it for the stupidity and the funny and what have you. But yeah, I think it's a great time to put the belt on him. You've got a big pay-per-view coming the week of your birthday for AEW. So hey, let's see how long he keeps the belt this time.